Hello all, welcome to our second module. In this module, we'll discuss artificial intelligence and how AI can drive exponential changes to the society and to the whole world. In this class, we will discuss elements of AI. So here we will discuss what is artificial intelligence, the history of AI, and what is true and what is myth about AI. In the next classes, we'll go further and see details about AI, like technical approaches and how you train an AI and different models of AI. And in the last class, we'll discuss the challenges of AI, such as governance, ethics, and social impact, such as discrimination, racism on AI. Okay? So let's start. The first thing we have to discuss is that artificial intelligence is everywhere. So nowadays, artificial intelligence is not science fiction anymore. Okay? We have artificial intelligence in different systems, in different aspects of our lives. For example, we have recommendation systems. Every time you go to a stream service for movies, for TV series, for music, you receive recommendations. So in this case, in these recommendation systems, the system in some way knows about your preference, knows about your desire, your possible desire, and recommend a new content for you. Of course, it's not limited to the streaming services, but it's very broad adopted in e-commerce and other areas of commerce. We also have artificial intelligence in facial recognition systems that's used for public security, but also for personal security, such as in some smartphones. For example, iPhone, you can unlock your mobile using your face. So it's also such implementation of artificial intelligence. We can also have artificial intelligence AI in anti-fraud system, for example, credit card transactions. And also we can have AI on credit approval system. So you're trying to get some money from the bank, and then bank can perform analysis of your profile and give you an answer. Oh, you have credit, you don't have credit. So it is also AI can also be used on this scenario. So here you can see different aspects and different applications of AI. So and also in the picture you can see AI, for example, for navigation, for routes in apps such as Waze or Maps. Okay, so here you can see different aspects of AI, different systems of AI. And the question that I can ask you is, what is in common among all those examples? Because I told you, all those systems, different systems can have AI on it. But okay, so what is AI at all? And now we'll discuss a little bit more about that. Okay, so the purpose of this first class is to have a, a broad overview of what is really AI nowadays, and what is fact and what is myth. Okay, but you can also need to have an experience and information that AI is also responsible to bring new types of interaction, especially on voice systems. For example, here in this image, in this photo, we have one voice system called Alexa from Amazon that you can ask something. For example, a recipe, you are cooking and you ask about a recipe or about an ingredient, and you can have a conversation system. So it brings a different interaction because during the development of technology, we interact with artificial intelligence, artificial systems, artificial artifacts using mainly screens, keyboards, and mouse. And now we have a different possibility, that is the voice systems. And it's very interesting because it has like a natural language interface. So you do not need to type. You do not need to use your hands to move the mouse. You just say. And language is the most powerful and the most common interface for humans. And now we are dealing with AI in such a way. So AI is becoming ubiquitous computing. So it is everywhere, but it's hidden, okay? And we interact in natural ways. It brings us some challenges. For example, some researchers from psychology or philosophy, cognitive science, are understanding how it will change the human behavior. For example, kids are using some personal assistant as a kind of personal friend. But you know, like artificial intelligence does not have intimacy at all. So it's a challenge that we'll have for the next decades. But it's very powerful because it's a new and strong interface. But it brings challenges that we will discuss deep in the last class of this module, in the ethical and social challenges. Here is just to have an overview of the area. And we also need to understand that AI brings new experience, but it calls some questions about human agency. As we discussed previously, we have like I think that the state of art in AI is recommended system. For example, as you have in streaming, in e-commerce, and so on. It's very interesting because at the same time that it gives you a better experience of using these systems because you receive like content recommendation that's really linked with your profile. We have a different type of problems. For example, what we call in academia, that's called bubbles and content loop. What a bubble and content loop? It's like probably you have already heard about filter bubble in social media. For example, you are inside a bubble and you receive information and content uh, within this bubble. And here we are investigating and we are finding evidence that the same thing is happening in such recommended systems. For example, you are within in a bubble and you receive content from the same aspect. So it's very, very bad for plurality, for content plurality. Okay, so it's one challenge that we will also go further in the last class. And also we have like privacy and security issues because for for example, for a recommendation systems to give you the best recommendation, it has to know you and it knows you using your data, your personal data. So here we also have some challenges. So this part is just to show, for example, the benefits and the challenges of AI. And here is an example. For example, Netflix. Uh, Netflix has different covers for TV series or movies, and for each cover, Netflix will show for a specific type of users. For example, if you are a user that really likes terror, Netflix will show you one type of cover. But if you are a user that likes very much adventure type of content, then Netflix will show you a different cover. Okay, just here, just to illustrate that in fact they really know you, your preference, and in some way they try to talk to you in a specific way, in a personal way. All right, but AI is not new. So now we will discuss about AI history. So AI history is very close to computer science history. Uh, the first art paper that articulates not AI, the term artificial intelligence, but propose a questions that we can see here was Alan Turing. So in 1950, Alan Turing wrote this paper, and the first chapter is called The Imitation Gamer. That's why the move also calls Imitation Game. And he wrote, I propose to consider the question, can machine think? So it was the first time that, not the first time that someone thought with or discussed with, oh, the machine can think or not. But the first paper that really articulates in an academic and scientific way to discuss this and to see if the machine can think or not. And based on this paper, we have today what we call Turing test. Oh, the machine is thinking or not. Okay? And let's read what Turing thought about this. So, I propose to consider the question, can machine think? This should begin with definitions of meaning of terms machine and think. The definitions might be framed so as to reflect so far as possible the normal use of the word, but this attitude is dangerous. If the meaning of the word machine and think are to be found by examining how they are commonly used, It is difficult to escape the conclusion that the meaning and the answer to the question, can machine think, is to be sought in a statistical survey such as Gallup poll. But this is absurd. Instead of attempting such a definition, I shall replace the question by another, which is closely related to it, and is expressed in relatively unambiguous words. The new form of the problem can be described in terms of a game, which we call the imitation game. It's played with three people, a man, a woman, and an interrogator, who may be of either sex. The interrogator stays in a room apart from the others two. The object of the game for the interrogator is to determine which of the other two is the man and which is the woman. He knows them by label X and Y, and at the end of the game, he says either X is A and I is B, or X is B and Y is A. The interrogator is allowed to put questions to A and B thus. Okay? Will X please tell me the length of his or her hair? So to see the length of the hair, to infer if whether it's woman or man, for example, you can have different questions. And then during in the paper, Turing argued, for example, if you have a situation that we have the interrogator, but he, the interrogator, will talk to another character that could be a human or a machine and ask those same questions. At the end, will be the interrogator able to identify the machine? If not possible, for example, to identify the machine, Turing assumes that the machine in some way is trying to think. Okay, so that's the essence of Turing test. Of course, there are some critics to this approach, for this Turing approach to establish of AI, but it's just a context. So in 1950, Turing has had already published a paper about this question. But the first use of AI was in the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on AI. It was the first use of artificial intelligence. It was a conference that was conducted by John McCartney, Marvin Minsky, Rochester, Claude Chanel. So in 56, that was the first time that the term artificial intelligence appeared. And from then to now, we see different changes on AI. So we see a lot of improvements on AI. And here is just a curiosity. For example, Marvin Minsky, the researcher that was part of this team, was very close to Kubrick. And he helped Kubrick to create the Hall, the character from the Space Odyssey. So it's just a curiosity. And now in the 19th, we have like artificial intelligence systems playing chess, for example. Here is Kasparov, the chess player, the world champion chess player. Okay, but the message that we have now is that there is no general artificial intelligence. So what is general artificial intelligence? We also say general AI. It is in such a way a system or an AI that can deal with multiple problems at the same time. So it's a system that will know how to read, read, how to listen, how to answer questions, how to see, how to infer some questions, how to deal with math, how to deal with physics, how to deal with geography. So it's like a super intelligence. But we are far from the general AI. Okay? What we have today is AI model that's very powerful, but it's very powerful to deal with special cases, special scenarios. But one thing that we have to have in mind is that AI does not know the problem it could solve. Okay? So, for example, there is not AI that you solve any problem. Oh, use AI here. No, it's out of the scope of AI. You probably can have some AI to help you in some scenarios, but you need to know what the problem is. You need to know what is the different types of AI that can be applied in this scenario, and you need to train this AI model to work in this scenario. All right? So for example, you can have different models. For example, here you have like speech recognition that listen what you say and is transcribing to written language. Okay, it's one artificial intelligence. It's one model, and this model just does this task, converting listening speech to written um, language. But for example, this model does not know how to recognize image. For this, you have another model, another artificial intelligence. For example, that will recognize image. And you have, for example, a third model that will work with natural language process. For example, we'll do uh, grammar checks, um, and so on, for example. So here is just to see that we do not have like general artificial intelligence. We have different models for different tasks, and you or me or the team of scientists will need to train the best model, the best type of model for this specific problem, for this specific scenario. For example, if you want to work with conversational systems, of course we need speech recognition, but we also need like natural language process. But in such a way, you will not need image recognition because, for example, Alexa, you are just talking to it. It does not has it does not have a camera inside, so you don't need to work with image recognition. Okay, so here is just to show that AI is powerful because it indeed can recognize your speech. Okay, but the speech recognition model does own that. Okay, and here we have different types of AI. We have, because how can AI learn? It's an important question. And AI can learn in different ways. But mainly, AI learn from examples, okay? Suppose you want to build a system to recognize image fruit images, okay? And you can, your desire, your objective is to train a model to recognize apple and bananas, okay? How can I train this model? I can show examples to my model. So I can have thousands and thousands of examples of bananas, like images of bananas, and thousands of examples of apples, images of apples, and I show you to my model. My model will process all those images, and in every image you have like a label saying, oh, this is banana, or this is an apple. And in some way the machine, our model, you learn how to recognize this, to recognize the patterns from banana and the patterns from apple. So once the model is trained, it can be used to generalize. What I mean by generalize? For example, my model was trained with examples of banana. My model was also trained with examples from apple. In such a way, my model learned the patterns of bananas and the patterns of apple. My system didn't learn the pattern of a specific banana, but the banana in general, because I process many examples of bananas and many examples of apples, okay? So my system is able to process and recognize bananas that it has never seen before. So it's very powerful because I do not need to code my AI to work with all the bananas in the world, because it learns the patterns, okay, and it can generalize. That's why we have today facial recognition system, okay? When you using your smartphone or in public security, it doesn't matter. The system knows you because the system has information, data about you, about your face. That's why when you purchase, for example, an iPhone, you need to look it to the camera. They will first recognize your face, learn the patterns of your face, and then you can use it to unlock your phone. Because you give to the system the example that it needs to learn, okay? And that's why facial recognition is possible nowadays. Facial recognition is not possible, for example, not when you do not use artificial intelligence. Because imagine if you are building a system that does not have AI inside and you want to recognize faces. So in such a way, you need to have a programmer or a computer scientist to code all the faces from all your users. That is insane. That does not make sense. But AI can help you, and AI can create a way for your system to learn. All right? So in the next class, we'll go further on this, and we'll look at different types of learning. You can have like supervised learning when you are teaching the systems with examples, but those examples are labeled, are supervisionized. You can also have unsupervised learning, for example, when your data is not labeled. For example, supervised learning is when you have images of fruits, and in each file you have here is banana, here's apple. Okay, this is supervised. Unsupervised is when you have the same amount of data, but you do not have the label. So you have images from fruits, but you don't know, you do not have the labels if the image is banana or apple, for example. And you have reinforcement learning when you interact with the environment. And for those different learning methods, you can do different types of systems. And that's what we'll look in the next class. But now we are not finished. It's reading time. So I will uh, ask you to read those questions that you have access, so you can have a better view of how AI is being used today. So in the next class, we can go further and discuss technical aspects of how AI can learn. Thank you and see you in the next class.